helps when you pick up the microphone. Have you noticed that?
Well, maybe it's because we're having a pretty beautiful fall day here in Minnesota. Although, obviously, this time of year we tend to get all of the seasons in one day if we're not careful. But today it looks like it's going to be lovely, and it's rather distracting because a couple weeks ago, it was just the shittiest fucking week.
Oh, it was gray and just a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, though, I think that some of those are like really good weeks for sex because I did not want to get out of bed.
Yeah. But you know what? It's so weird. Humidity is a funny thing because you can be inside with the air on and still know it's humid.
Yeah. I mean, that was it because it was a day where it was heat on. The next day, AC on, and then the next day, heat. And then I was able to turn my furnace off and just have the fan for a day or two. And then now I'm back to AC because of the humidity. I was like, oh my God. It's like, yeah. I have multiple personality HVAC right now. It's just,
This is an interesting story. And I didn't know there's a part B. There's a part A, which was bad enough, but the part B really pissed me off. Oh, no. This was an Alaskan high school swim team. Did you hear about this?
No, I was feeling really crappy last week, but honestly, I decided to not feel. I stayed away from the news a little bit. I just had to watch. I found a website about a farmer in Oregon who has cows, and I watched lots of cow videos.
That can be fun.
And then I found this other website that has like this woman somewhere in China that cooks things, and I don't understand how she does tiny little things with this big ass knife, and that was fascinating. But that's about where
you've been lately.
Where I've been. I need little chunks of just innocuous stuff.
Well, goat videos are highly amusing too.
Yeah.
Okay. This was and I guess maybe this piqued my attention because I have two nieces that are avid swimmers, and they're on teams, and one's a diver and a swimmer, and so we watch this stuff. So there was this Alaska high school who had this, they've got a real star female swimmer, and she won like everything, and she got disqualified because an official ruled that her swimsuit was a violation of modesty rules. Now, they said,
okay, I have seen competition swimsuits. There's some of how could, in my opinion, almost if there's modesty rules, almost everyone would especially men's would qualify.
Well,
okay,
this official said that he saw butt cheeks. Now, she was wearing the school issued swimsuit, the exact same suit that everybody else on her team wore. So the poor girl gets a wedgie. They strip her of her title, and they immediately, her name is Brecken Willis. And she's from Anchorage. But the school appealed, and the victories were restored. And they said they called the disqualification heavy-handed and unnecessary, asserting that, quote, our swimmer was targeted based solely on how a standard school-issued uniform happened to fit the shape of her body. And then one of the coaches said, she's also among the few non-white athletes in this predominantly white sport. All these girls are wearing suits that are cut the same way, and the only girl who gets disqualified is a mixed race girl with rounder, curvier features. Then I got even more pissed when I read that. So, I mean,
my daughter who is non-white would be standing right next to her friends who were wearing a lot skimpier clothing than she was, and her high school folks would comment on what she was wearing.
You're kidding?
Yeah, even her friends noticed it. They'd be standing there going, yeah.
That's just bullshit. I mean,
yeah, we sexualized women more than we should, and kids and stuff like that. But you can Google it. There's studies, but they tend to sexualize, non-white kids, or if you happen to be a larger bust. Yeah, anything that's not if you're not the perfect unattainable figure, then you get penalized.
Yeah. Yep. So, congratulations, Brecken. I hope you have a great swim career. I hope you get a scholarship and people leave you alone. That was messed up. The amount of work was, there's something about like swimming that you have to like be at the pool like 6 a.m. in the morning. What is it? It just seems to me that to some sports now, when do these kids sleep? I don't know. Yeah, these two aren't the older one is 13 and the younger one is like 11, but they're not in that age range where they're at sick. But I mean, they're constantly at meets, constantly. And my 13-year-old niece was competing with high schoolers from 5 states over the summer. She's like, so yeah, it's a crazy deal. And their mom's a coach. So, but this is kind of funny. This happened in Britain. This retired porn star has gotten into big trouble. Her name is Zaina Elmore, but she used to be known as Kat Lee. She was having trouble getting jobs because of her former career. So she's just volunteering at like what would be the British equivalent of like a Salvation Army store or whatever. Problem was she was using the shop to sell $50 quickies.
No. See, therein lies. See, once again, there is someone. It's perfectly reasonable. This, where prohibition has a problem. But if you're doing one job, you don't get to do another job on that person on that other job.
This is a pet peeve of yours, and you are right.
No. You work from. I had to make a memo about this shit, and I'm just like, no. When you're on my time, you're working for me, not yourself or another business. I had the fact that I had to like write this and put it into the manual just was mind-boggling to me. Because it wasn't written down when I fired this person. They ended up having. Well, it didn't really. They were part-time, so it really didn't get them on my unemployment rating. But it still pissed me off.
Oh, for sure. I don't blame you. So anyway, she said she just has a hard time finding other employment, but. Now doing this on a volunteer job doesn't really help your record much.
No. That's classic shooting yourself in the foot. I'm sure you could do that someplace else.
Yes.
Mr. Hand. Okay, sorry. Remember Fast Times at Ridgemont High and the whole My Time thing at the end? Yes, Mr. Hand comes in and Spicoli, who's Sean Penn, which just totally blows my mind when I realized who that was.
Yes,
but it was his time, and shut up. Okay,
Mr. Hand was hilarious. I mean, when they eat the pizza. I mean that. Yeah, that movie was quite racy though at the time.
Yeah.
This is quite the story, I might add. So check this. Paris courts rule that a cardiac arrest during adulterous interlude as a workplace accident. Please allow me to share the details. This was a French railway company employee. Went into cardiac arrest and died during an adulterous sexual encounter with a perfect stranger on an out-of-town work assignment. Paris courts recently deemed it a workplace accident and is holding the employer liable. Now get this, it's a workers' comp case in which the Paris Court of Appeal ruled that the incident involved could be considered workplace injury because, according to those judges, a worker is still in an employer's responsibility while on a business trip, even during off hours and even if he's not doing job-related things, as long as he doesn't deviate overall from the assignment's mission. So they said TSO offered no proof that the worker didn't complete the work task that he was sent to the Loire region to carry out.
Oh, I think that's going to be overturned.
But this is the appeals court. And they stayed with it. So that means anything incidental he did as part of, quote, everyday life, including eating, showering, and having sex out of marriage, could be expected to be covered by company insurance. I mean, is that crazy or what?
It doesn't make any difference that he was having sex. He could have been. So, in other words, he's like done with work, but he's on a trip, work trip. And that anything that happens and that, See,
I don't think that's right. No. I don't think that's fair. It's not. Why would the company be
because
liable?
The heart attack would have happened somewhere.
Yeah. I think that's completely bizarre.
No, I know that, that France tends to have very worker-centric laws, but it's a little weird. There could be something in the way that the laws are written in the country that it made it happen, but I have the feeling that if it is, they're going to be rewriting a few things.
I would think so. Yeah,
I just saw something that a pet jaguar was roaming around rooftops somewhere in France. It got out. It was 6 months old, but they got it back. And I'm like, I'm just visualizing like those romantic turn of the century buildings
with a jaguar jumping around.
Yeah. It's going through there.
Oh, people with wild animals.
I mean, obviously this particular animal was probably bred in captivity and was never going to be able to function, in the wild anyway, because we're like, how many jaguars are in France? But,
But I'm just thinking.
But that doesn't make
in the average residential neighborhood, not probably a good thing to have.
No, not at all. But
I don't think so.
Either that or Catherine Deneuve there. Remember that her and remember there was a movie with her and was it David Bowie, and they were like vampire people or cat people or cats or something.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe someone was trying to do redo that.
Unclear. Next story. I do not know where the surgery took place, but the person that had this incredibly miraculous surgery is from Hopkins, Minnesota. Have you heard about the?
No, I haven't.
This girl's name is Jody Gamble Reed. She's 18-year-old, and she was born without a vagina and has had a new one built by doctors so that she can have a normal sex life. So apparently the story is she started to develop as a male in the womb, but at around 12 weeks, the process suddenly stopped. And she's lived with a variation of what they call intersex, something that she defines as not having the typical binary sex organs or parts. So she doesn't have either, okay? And she says, when you look at me, you see a female. So everyone assumes that I am, but there's a little more to it. And she said intersex is like a variation or evolved from, it's from hermaphroditism, basically, and it can vary from person to person. And she doesn't have internal or external sex organs. And she said, obviously, I can't have my own biological children. And so she just decided to have this reconstructive surgery. And she says, I'm in it for my own enjoyment and pleasure. She had the surgery in July, and they used a piece of her colon to create a vaginal canal. And she says she's been bleeding quite a lot down there. And I just remember thinking, well, I finally got a period I never had. And she said she's really excited. And wow.
Yeah, I mean, although I have to admit, it's probably easier to make an innie than an outie if you're going to pick something.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. And, if there's no external, I wonder if she had at one point, if she's going for the whole female experience, if she had like breast implants.
Ooh, well, I don't know.
Through there doesn't say that.
It doesn't.
That would be, it would be fascinating. I love the fact that, this just proves, people can be born a lot of different ways.
Yep.
There's no one way to be a human, or two ways, or three ways, or whatever it is. But surgery like this really help folks that have, she has a surgery for perfectly valid reasons. But stuff like this helps folks that have cancer or do different things or reconstructive.
For sure.
War. I mean, now that we have, we've been in war for almost 18 years now. There's plenty of folks that need a lot of surgery.
Yeah.
And, that's really cool. I had not seen this.
And it doesn't go into a lot of detail. I think I'm going to look her up and see if I can read more about the story. But, she chose what she feels like. And
because the brain went one way and the body just sort of short-circuited when it was developing.
It really
which is amazing because we do so little research because of ancient prudism in this country, to put it this way, that to understand that there are lots of variations in the human brain and the human body. So anytime that someone says, "Okay, this is me," and I'm just going through there, it takes a little bit of the stigma away from being different.
Yeah,
and it's spectacular.
Well, I'm just really glad that some dedicated medical professionals decided that, this was worth their time and expertise because, there was a time where people would be like, well, you're alive, you're fine. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have, I love it.
That they understood that your brain and your body needs to be the, what you think it is. It's nice to have things to, do that. I mean, they just because someone loses an arm doesn't mean that you don't get a prosthetic arm.
Right.
It's all the same bits.
Yep. It is. This is amazing. There's a study done by the University of Georgia, and it's not judgy, although the title maybe sounds like it is. It said study shows teens who hold off on dating have better social skills. Let me explain. So they went ahead and did this 6-year study of Georgia teens, and they found that those who didn't date were happier, less depressed, and more adept at dealing with a variety of social situations. So this research team, they followed them, from different, experiences. And they said the majority of kids have had some type of romantic experience by 15 to 17. And they said, but the high frequency, some researchers say that, dating is normal. But they said it doesn't mean that teens that don't date are maladjusted in any way. And basically what they found is they weren't like the kids that dated, they weren't blaming dating for them not being that way. They just found that they were more developed as their own people. And they even had their teachers participate.
Yeah, because everyone, if you're comfortable with yourself, then you're more comfortable with others.
Right.
And a lot of times if any part of you bases your self-worth on the person you're dating,
yep,
it's going through there. And if you're dating earlier, you might have a brain that does that. Or maybe you're just someone who's, like there's different reasons. Someone just like, hey, I found someone that's really cool, and your brain has developed faster. I mean, once again, everyone's different. But I have there was a whole book in the 70s or 80s called like the Cinderella syndrome, women who just live their life in boxes waiting to get married, never going forward.
Yep.
There's probably,
society fostered that for a really long time.
And I mean, honestly, and then sort of did that, the thing there for men is the fact that they're supposed to be like domesticated and live like slobs until they get married, and then they, start being responsible. Well, you can be responsible before you're married. You can be your own person before you are married. So it's not required in someone else. And I realized that I had never lived in boxes. I just kept going forward.
No, you did a lot of things, at a time. You did a lot of what would have been considered non-standard, in the era that we grew up in, Colleen. You never really had your sights set on getting married, did you?
It never occurred to me that I wouldn't, but I didn't have any fantasies that I would.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, I owned china and crystal before I was married because you know what? They're pretty things. And
they are pretty.
And I like sparkly shit.
So do I.
And then the thing is, I also worked in the china department when I was younger, and I learned that actual bone china is stronger than all this other stuff. It doesn't chip.
Really?
So use your good stuff every damn day. All the other stuff just breaks all the fucking time. I have a set of china, and in 30-some years, I broke one plate because I accidentally hit the lip of my granite countertop and managed to break plate. But I mean, it took that, but I have not chipped or broken another piece. How many other Target sets or even cheaper stoneware of this have sets of people gone through? I'm using the same shit.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah. Nothing breaks. It's so much stronger.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then you decided, when you decided that you wanted to be a parent, you adopted a child. I mean, you're pretty I don't know, innovative, definitely out of the box. And Fred, the studio dog, I just need to tell the audience, is kind of curled up around your butt.
Yeah. My lower, warm? Yeah, my lower back is like having like a little heating pad back there because my lower back is where the Freddy here is all curled around.
He just loves you. I mean, it's so cute. He just snuggled right up. That's so cute. Okay, so where I was going with this is Des Moines. That's okay. We do this all the time. Des Moines lawyer Catherine Sears is also non-conventional, but wow, this is, I think she might have you beat, Colleen.
Extra levels up.
Okay. So she's a lawyer, and she's married to another lawyer, and they have a son. She's got a side gig, and it's not Uber. Okay. She goes out to Nevada to work in legal brothels. And she's like, I like sex. Sex is fun, and I can get paid for it.
If you are a good, now, okay, she's a lawyer, so she's probably an excellent negotiator. Because I remember a show years ago on HBO, and personally, I think the houses take too much, but that's a whole separate conversation. But you have to negotiate your fee, but then you're paying for the room, and you're paying. I mean, there's so many fees on top of this shit. I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
Oh yeah.
But she probably negotiates a pretty damn a good price. I mean, she could probably make tens of thousands of dollars in over a weekend.
Oh yeah. Okay. So check this. Okay. She says, first of all, she's working in her legal career to decriminalize and destigmatize prostitution. And she's like, she's like, you can say no sex without a condom. You can say no sex till we're married, but you can't say no sex until you pay me. And she goes, that just undermines consent, in my opinion. Now, she lives with her husband and their 4-month-old son. She was working as a prostitute when she met her husband in law school. So he has known about this. He's, whatever. They have a criminal defense practice together. And he says, I don't really care that much about her job in Nevada where prostitution is legal. She typically spends 3 weeks in Nevada and 1 in Des Moines, but she's been back in Des Moines more lately to practice law and be with her family. But she says she'll have 10 to 15 clients, and she came home. Her biggest haul ever was $55,000 in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Kids 529 is completely funded.
Well, she says that
I'm actually surprised it's 3 in 1. I have to admit that my brain went to the other.
That surprised me too.
Mm-hmm. But then again, maybe I mean, Dad's like, huh? I mean, he gets to be a single parent a lot, but he's probably a fairly independent person too.
He would have to be. Mm-hmm. But one thing she does as part of her law practice, and this is probably what's going on, she handles prostitution cases free of charge. Mm-hmm. And so they've got a mission, that probably funds a lot of it, which is whatever, good for them.
So to prove sex work is work.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Colorado police officers talked a 29-year-old naked New Mexico man down from a 150-foot steel power line. And everything is fine, but the crisis negotiators work their asses off in trying to coax him down.
High?
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively?
Indeed. And struggling with addiction and all of that sort of thing. So once again, the mental illness thing. And I don't know what the answer is because, this makes me think of a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, has a younger brother who, long story short, after a lot of issues with addiction and all sorts of things throughout his life, has been in and out of prison now in the last few years. And he's mentally ill and he will not stay on meds. So when he is on meds and doing what he needs to do, he's fine. But then he doesn't like it. Then he goes off and he is choosing to live homeless right now. And she has tried to do all sorts of things, but you can't.
No. I mean, I'm fascinated over the fact that, you can call your friends to help you move and get pizza, and then your new house is just fine. But you can't. The hardest things in life are all on that person. And if you're not wired to do that, no matter what, you cannot help that person. Yeah. Now it's not like everyone has to go alone. I mean, there are therapists and programs to help you get there, but still the person has to do the work themselves.
Yeah.
And that's for physical therapy. I couldn't have someone do the physical therapy on my ankle or my hand. Mm-hmm. It sucks, but I had to do it. Now, did I go to a physical therapist and get help? Yeah. There's only one person that can do the work. Yeah. And possibly folks, some brains may not be wired for it. I do think there should be some place that they can go and stay, because I know that some shelters won't accept folks that are on substances. But there really should be, because their brain is wired or addicted. Shouldn't they have some place they can sleep that's not outdoors?
Well,
but then some people, and it's not, and I know there's because of all of the judgment and stigma. I mean, it's just it's a human being. There's very few human beings on Earth that I honestly don't think should be here. Most of them are pedophiles and assholes like that, that honestly do things that they know are going to hurt other people, and then they need to be set aside. Put them on an island somewhere they can have their own thing going on. But to have some place where someone could just not freeze to death in the winter. Mm-hmm. I don't.
Well, he lives in California, but that's just it. I mean, the parents. I mean, this could be an entire show by itself. But I mean, he literally. Every time he tries to go someplace, and he's had many opportunities, he doesn't want to play by the rules, and. You can't just lock somebody up against their will. Not that she tried to, but she tried to get him off the street. Yeah. And it's really, really sad and hard.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it does hurt when you can't save someone or do something or change someone, and to have to detach from an own family member or a friend, because I mean, sort of like on an airplane, put your own oxygen mask on first. You're not going to be, you can't drown yourself trying to help someone else.
Yeah. But, whenever bad things happen involving people that probably have mental problems, they always say, well, where were their friends and family? Well, they might have tried, you know.
There is, but it is, I get really annoyed when I see that shit. I mean, there are folks that have not tried at all or have not been to stuff like that, but for the most part, they probably have. And then at one point, you got to step back.
Yep.
Because the person, the hard work is only going to be done by the one person.
Yep.
But I do, like I said, it just, everyone says they didn't follow the rules or something. There's probably a few folks out there that are smart enough to figure out a plan for folks that can't follow the plans. It's not, you know what I mean? I don't know, honestly, though, if we've tried every, thing versus just lock them up or do this, that there's probably another path that we haven't wrapped our brains around yet, because we're still in a punitive stage in someone is going through there, or the fact that there are people that are assholes, but that doesn't mean that the other people that are having problems that aren't assholes don't deserve, help for any addiction.
For sure. Yeah. You sent me this story. Okay. And I know you've forgotten it by now, but I have to tell you the story about me seeing this story. Okay. You sent it to me. I read it and I went, oh my. Then a few days later, I was driving somewhere talking to a friend on the phone, and I said, have you heard about the seagull that snatched the guy's testicle? And she goes, what? And I said, yeah, this seagull in Great Britain, this guy was nude sunbathing in his garden, and a seagull swooped down and ripped off one of his nuts and flew off with it. And when I said it out loud, because I hadn't talked about this, I had only read it, I'm driving in the car, and all of a sudden I could not stop laughing. Okay? Now, I realized this had to have hurt like hell. And I'm going to jump to this part right now for everybody who's thinking I'm a bad person right now. He lived. He can still have kids. Yes, he only has one ball. But backtracking to, there's so many questions. They believe it was a young seagull who mistook the testicles for the eggs of another bird, which is what seagulls will go and prey on if they're not at SeaWorld stealing your hamburger, which has happened to me. The guy was rushed to the ER, and the hospital took care of it, stitched him up and everything else. And I'm sorry this happened to this poor man, but can I just say, do you really need to roast your nuts in the sun?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what sort of clothing the guy would wear that he didn't need suntan lines. Yeah. But seagulls can be really vicious. I remember listening to Wait, Don't Tell Me once. So there was a story about seagulls, and someone had rented a hotel room and had like samples of meat or something in there and left the window open. And when he came back, seagulls had gone into the open window and completely trashed the room, going after whatever like smoked meat product he had left on the counter.
Right.
So, you think that they are sweet little animals, cute, but they're and they got the little pointy beaks.
Oh,
and they're really, rather vicious.
Because I got in a big argument with my husband over this. He's like, there's no way. And I pulled up some pictures of seagulls. I'm like, you don't think if that thing wanted to rip and tear that it could?
Yeah. I mean, just going through there because, that's not the thickest skin around testicles, and there's that's going through there. I mean, and I'm sure that's when you've got an animal in your groin, that there's a moment of shock.
An animal in your groin. Sorry, just the way you put that. Yeah. Okay,
there's a bit of shock before you realize what's going on. But
yeah.
It does make me wonder if this person also did some grooming, because it's usually a bit of hair, Yeah.
So when we've had over the years a chances to talk with some of the wonderful wholesale reps that that represent the lines of toys and various things that Fantasy Gifts sells. And when they travel, they're traveling salespeople, right? So they have samples, and so they have to go through security with dildos and butt plugs and things like that. And it's always fun to hear their stories. And they said, they have fun with it, and
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were never in the industry, and then they just sort of answered a help wanted ad. It's good they didn't. If you're a salesperson, you pretty much can rep any product.
Yeah.
But then once they find this industry, they end up moving around in it because it's certainly it can be a lot more fun than your just ordinary widget.
Yes, I agree. So imagine this Gatwick airport in London. There was a suitcase and they had 25 bags of white powder, and they definitely took this person aside, and the guy tried to explain what it was. They weren't hearing it. They locked this guy up for several hours while they tested he said, look, these are cake ingredients for a vegan bakery. And they said, no, you're in deep shit. And long story short, they turned out to be, pizza and cake ingredients for a vegan bakery. So,
well, I mean, but did they mention the packaging on that? I mean,
yeah, it didn't say.
Okay. I mean,
it was
honestly,
labeled.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way: even if you're traveling with that sort of stuff, one, I'd probably ship it. Versus having on me. But I mean, there's had to be some, some issues, or maybe other folks have attempted to label stuff. But it should, if you look at someone's job history and a cursory search in any system should be able to figure out what something is. Something like this.
Yeah.
I don't think they were wrapped with duct tape and tucked in coffee like you see on TV shows in the 80s.
Right. Well, I don't know about you, but I have really, as much as I try, I've had really bad experiences with the TSA. I mean, they're just, and I'm sure they're just like any other people that can be having bad days or whatever. But I've found them to be, I've encountered many who are unnecessarily harsh. It's a stressful situation.
I mean, honestly, if you don't realize you're going to be dealing with thousands of people a day who don't want to be in front of you, then maybe that is not the job for you.
Yeah.
Because I honestly think I'm probably pretty. I think I'd be able to figure it out. Just going through there, who's just an asshole and who's tired and who's trying to wrangle the 3-year-old and who might actually be a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, most of that shit's security theater anyway. But yeah.
I had a situation not too long ago where I was going on a work trip, and something happened in the line to where I ended up scrambling and trying to move. I think somebody else had a problem, and I was trying to get out of the way. And I always have to have more than bins than most people because I have a laptop and my briefcase, all that. So I was scrambling, and in it, I was holding my phone because I had just shown my ticket.
Yeah, and you're so used to having your phone in your...
And I didn't set it down in the bin, and the TSA guy grabbed me by the wrist and started just yelling at me and berating me. And I said, I'm sorry. I said I was trying to keep the line moving, and he just kept yelling at me. And I said, I made a mistake. If I'm not arrested, can I just keep going? I mean, it was just, and it was like, you know what? I didn't need that.
No,
and it was
that person at that point should have been removed from the fucking line.
Yeah, they needed to go on a break.
Yeah, I've got. I spent the time and effort to get the known traveler stuff.
Yeah,
to try and get through, and but I was booking an airline ticket for my daughter the other day, and somehow they have her birthday down as 1900.
Oh my God!
So I'm trying really hard to get that changed because the last time she flew, she did not get her pre-check. And you're supposed to get that. And I'm wondering if it's because that. And I'm like, that shouldn't even, there are no 100, there's no over 100-year-old people, not that. I mean, this is fairly obvious.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. So I had a, picture of her license and picture of this. And I sent everything to here. And I'm hoping they get this, get this fixed. But, like I said, spent a fair amount of time so that we can get into the, because we're fairly seasoned travelers. And I absolutely, it's probably the mom in me, but I absolutely, when I didn't have it, did not worry if there was someone in front of me with a stroller and a 3-year-old. I'm like, hey, they're just going through there.
I know how hard it is for me just to get through.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine if I had little humans that may make a decision to not be thrilled with this scenario. And, right?
Yeah. And I got lucky. My daughter was a good traveler, and she falls asleep at the drop of a freaking hat.
That's great.
So, but it's never, I'm never upset at a kid. I'll be annoyed at parents who may not be at their best. Because they're supposed to suck it up and and work at it, but maybe they're having a bad day too. But for the most part, I've been really lucky with traveling.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you're going to break into a Botox clinic, you might want to make sure you have like the plan A, plan B, and plan C stuff with you. Houston, Houston police caught this woman on camera trying to break into a Botox clinic with this little saw. And she goes up to the locked door, was trying to pry it open. So then she gave up, came back in a car that was caught on camera with a battery-powered grinding saw. She did get the door open and left with an undisclosed amount of age-defying products. And there's now a bolo on her, but how stupid do you have to be?
I'd be looking. We had there's cameras everywhere nowadays. So, the idea that they could watch the car, they could see who it is and get your picture. I certainly hope she sells a lot of this shit out of her trunk or whatever she's doing, because she's going to need it to pay for her lawyer's fees when they catch her.
Yeah. Yep. You probably don't watch the Terminator movies.
I think I saw the first one years ago, but I really had no interest after that. I understand they're making another one.
Yeah. And Linda Hamilton is back. She's now 62 years old. Really cool article about her. We'll post it on the Great Northern Sexcast Facebook page. She's going to play Sarah Connor once again, who she was famously.
Was it her that had the shotgun in her hand and managed to one hand eject the just hold up the rifle and then eject the
I think
stuff,
so.
yeah, like that. And I remember folks going, what the hell is this woman working out for? Because that is almost impossible to do.
Right. Right.
So she was
she was so
physically,
famously fit for that movie. Yeah.
And the same with Sigourney, whatever. Yeah, just the thing is just don't piss off women in movies. They tend not to react well.
No. Well, this article talks about the fact that she has, quote, been celibate for at least 15 years. She
she used to be married to Cameron, the director, or something like that. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that was not. I think that was fairly acrimonious.
Yes,
when they
it was
separated.
Yes, and she says she would only consider a marriage proposal from her favorite artist, but she said she has a very romantic relationship with her world every day and the people in it. She decided that living in Malibu was too scary and not real, so she lives in New Orleans with her 2 dogs. And is just kind of like really,
it sounds cool, but it sounds like that there's some, people can choose that, perfectly, but hopefully it's for the right reasons. It's going through there. But people go through years of celibacy for lots of different reasons in between stuff or this or that. Some people are not wired for lack of a better term right now, one-night stands or hookups. It's going through there.
Yep.
You need to be, you need to have a deep, involvement.
Yeah.
And it's, not particularly easy, even, I would assume, even for a movie star to meet people that that is going through there.
Yeah. That's the one thing about celebrity that I do think would be really, really tough. You don't know, you just don't know if you can trust people, and why they, what their motives really are. So I think it's smart for her to kind of maybe try to go into real life. But
but I'm not sure if I would consider New Orleans though, less weird than Malibu, but there's certainly going to be better music.
Better music, great food, but really a lot more diversity than you're ever going to see in Malibu. That's one thing.
I have been to New Orleans just a few times. It's been quite a while, but I want to get back because I really want to shovel a bunch of really good food into my face and listen to some more music.
Yeah, my sister's such a doorknob. She doesn't like the food in New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans, and I'm planning to get there ASAP because I all of my impressions of it are formed by the show Pitbulls and Parolees.
Okay.
Because I'm an avid fan of that, being an owner of 2 rescued pit bulls. But it just looks like the kind of place where everybody just does their thing.
Yeah. When we were there years ago, we ate at, I think it's called Antoine's, which is like the oldest family owned restaurant, like in the country. And it serves, very traditional New Orleans food and stuff like that. We got their baked Alaska, which was like football sized, and here's I'm pretty sure I'd mentioned this, but they took over a couple of buildings. And so to get from one part of the building to another, you actually go through an alley that's had a roof put over it. Yeah. So it's fairly narrow. And along it, they have these very narrow, small display cases. And certainly in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, everybody had their own like ashtray with their logo on it.
Oh yeah.
So there are hundreds of logo ashtrays that have been collected, and they're on display.
Oh my gosh.
I'm there with my daughter because we're looking at the different rooms and all that, and we're standing there, and she points up at all this and goes, "What are those?" She didn't know. And this waiter that was probably a little bit younger than me at the time paused and then went on because both of us realized at the same time that someone my daughter's age had no idea what an ashtray was.
Yeah.
So few, I don't smoke, so few folks do. And when they do, they go outside and they just coffee can. But nobody has a big decorative ashtray on their coffee table. You don't steal one from the hotel anymore, or wherever you're at the club. They just don't exist.
That's really funny.
There was this pause, and she did not know what an ashtray was. And I'm like, yay, she doesn't know what an ashtray is.
That's amazing.
But it was a really nice place, and we went to Preservation Hall, and but the one thing about it is it's become a little Times Square down Bourbon Street. I mean, you can sort of stand there, and what you see is like Rick's Cabaret on every corner. There really aren't any, it's not as naughty as it used to be, and it's really quite corporate. Yeah. But if you go through there, but there's still great music at Preservation Hall. If you go down Royal Street, there still is. Because remember, a lot of folks that are like under 40 don't want big furniture anymore, don't want all these heirlooms. The antique stores have things that are stunning. I don't even know what half the shit is. Just these gorgeous pieces of furniture. And if I hadn't been traveling, with a kid, probably would have done a little bit more of the nightlife and see what's going on. But we took a ghost tour, and it's a sexy city.
Oh, yeah.
It is really, really sexy. There's just something about it. That is really good.
How was the ghost tour?
We took one that promised no people jumping out in costume, and it was really nice because we went around, and there was an old drugstore where murders had taken place in the supposedly ghost. Then there was the house where the people had kept people that were in slavery chained to things, and some of it, but it was done well, and it's more of a history tour of the atrocities, whether or not it was, because there were other ghost tours where like people jump out in costume. I said, no. And there's other tours where people would, I've done enough Renaissance festivals and other things. I do not need someone dressed up in a costume. It just,
you're over it.
I am so over it. And it was fascinating. It was really nice. I didn't, like I said, when you're traveling with a kid, you don't get to do as much of the nightlife stuff.
Sure.
But it really, you go, it's a very sexy city.
I can't wait to go. I really want to try it out. There's a lot of things I want to see there and a lot of history. Speaking of history, this is funny. So the Spearmint Rhino is a strip club. I think the first one was in Las Vegas. And then they tried to do kind of this...
like a franchise?
Yes, okay. Because we have one here.
Yeah, I think they're the ones that have like paid for all of the advertising on the pedicabs.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted an obscene amount of money because when I used to have a store in downtown Minneapolis. And God, I'm glad I don't anymore because they've torn up Hennepin Avenue.
Yep.
But infrastructure has to be fixed. I don't problem, but you would never be able to get to the store.
Right.
But every time I see one of those pedicabs, it's like they bought all the advertising for it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So they opened one up in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sitting here kind of laughing because they opened it in Trenton, Wisconsin, which is about 40 miles north of Milwaukee. So not a very...
North of Milwaukee?
Yes. So that's weird to me. Okay.
Well, okay. So is that like halfway to Green? That's like
not halfway. Green Bay's further than...
Yeah, okay.
But it's probably, up near the Sheboygan area, more like. Mm-hmm. But anyway, but it's north, of the city and away from the middle part.
They probably found a city that didn't have any ordinances, and they snuck in.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't make it, which doesn't surprise me because they probably didn't have the traffic. So now... the former Spearmint Rhino is going to be transformed into a Christian school. It is going to be the Ozaki Christian School. Mm-hmm. Officials purchased the strip mall, and they are going to make it in to this religious school. I guess it took them 2 years to get it going. And they said the transformation was a journey unlike anything we could have imagined, trying to convert, I'm sure there was booths in the champagne room and
the poles and the bar. And I mean, I just think about the amount of lighting that you would actually have to install.
Yeah. Yeah. And the school's administrator told the Milwaukee Sentinel earlier this year that while the strip pole was gone, you could at the time see the beautiful leopard carpet in the club that we were going to rip up. Mm-hmm. And, bummer. I want leopard carpet. That would be awesome.
I think I used to have zebra print chairs, and it must be maybe my Italian DNA, but I am attracted to leopard print things. I don't buy them.
Oh, really?
But I'm attracted to them. I think it's because I'm really short. The things I like that are leopard print, just in my brain, I need a little more length for them. I don't know how
clothing-wise?
Clothing-wise. Yeah, there are just certain prints that I tend not to pick up because I'm like, I sort of look square in them because I'm just so damned short.
Well, I have a leopard fainting couch, and it's fantabulous.
Mm-hmm. No, I should get something leopard.
You should. Furniture. Get it in front. I have leopard. Yeah. I have 2 pieces. I
have a bench at the end of my bed that my cats have shredded to bits. I wonder if I can find a slipperier, that can't get their claws in leopard print fabric.
You should look for it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe when I get my kid through school. I mean, really, all excess money. All about school.
It's college.
So
she better pass, is what you're saying.
Next few years, that's, I look at something that looks interesting and I go, but I could put this money towards, because I've got I got a fair amount saved, $529, the whole thing, but not everything.
Yep.
And then there's also just excess, there's just stuff.
Sure.
When a kid is 8 hours away, it's not like, it's not as easy to come home for Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
For sure. Well, we will keep up with her adventures. We hope she finishes in 4 years.
It took me 5 years and 2 trimesters to get through the U, and that was 30-some years ago when you had trimesters. And at that time, the average to get through the U without loans was 6 years. So I figure... I beat it by 1 trimester, so I was pretty lucky about that. And I don't hold any 18-year-old to a decision on their major that they make. I mean, they're 18.
Yeah.
No. I know everyone listening, almost everyone listening has probably either changed schools or changed majors. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so no, I refuse to put that pressure on her.
Well, indeed. Well, we'll be back with more stories in a week, but I'm glad you're feeling better.
I am thrilled to.
I bet nobody's gladder than you.